our language is so critical in the driving of our beliefs, meanings, and ultimately, which means our emotions and actions are the final result of that. So, and being okay with where we're at in that moment in time to be able to move forward and actually affect change in our meanings and our beliefs, which ultimately allow us to make better choices.
When we talk about language, and you previously asked that question of me, what are some of the factors in changing our mindsets and our attitudes and our beliefs? And language is a big part of that. And, I would suggest that in a way, we're probably talking stage 3 of that quadrant model, where we talk about meaning. And meaning is, our perception, and we could have internal meaning. So that's my language to myself, my self-talk, which is really just my thoughts. It's my awareness of my thoughts. And then there's external meaning, is what I say to others, which then can affect their thoughts and their meaning and their self-talk and their language, and obviously their beliefs. So as human beings, our key way of influencing others, others' behavior, and is ultimately through changing the way they think, and then eventually they shift the way they think and think about their behavior different, and then learning how to respond to that with differences in behavior. So certainly, if I look at that, what are the key factors of in the process of changing your mindset, your attitudes and beliefs? I still go back to, remember, identify why you want to change your mindsets. Like I a lot of times when we're looking at meaning in that third quadrant, it's not just creating meaning and changing language to change mindsets. Is, have you tapped into purpose? Like, why do you want to change? Mm-hmm. Going back to the earlier example, if someone wants to shift something in their health, they want to change their diet to be healthier. Just, having one reason, like, well, I just want to feel healthier, is okay. Or, for some people, I want to lose weight. Why do you want to lose weight? Well, because I want to fit in that suit for my wedding, or I want to fit in that dress. Like, that's a motivator. I'm not saying that's not, but understanding that you have to build a really strong some really strong purpose behind shifting or changing attitudes, mindsets, and ultimately behaviors is really key. So, to create change, we have to really identify why. And we run a whole program on purpose and identifying that why, where we go deep and broad on helping people see that what drives your changes in your life is purpose. But its purpose isn't like I have one purpose. We tend to think of it as a web of purpose or a network of purpose, kind of like a Google search engine, right? Google's founded on the brain. Like if you're searching for a website, the more tags and search terms that are built into your website, kind of the network of terms that get highlighted when someone, searches, allows your website to drive to the top of SEO. Whatever motivates you should have a lot of search terms, so the more reasons you have to do something, the more it's going to surge to the top of your list of priorities and things that you want to do. So if you want to create change, you got to dive deep on purpose. And we often talk to people about, making a hit list, like a top 10 hit list of reasons why you want to create change. So if you talk about the factors in changing mindsets, attitudes, and beliefs, you got to start with, why do you even want to change them in the first place? And not just think of one reason, think of as many as you can and write that down and look at it every day. And then, and then you get into, well, how do you, so you've thought of why, and then you got to go, well, to what do I want to change? What are the attitudes and beliefs or mindsets that they're going to help me go or get to where I want to go? And well, you got to learn them. You got to read about them, learn about the attitudes and beliefs of people who inspire you, who are living how you want to live, who have achieved what you aspire to achieve. Get around people and understand how they think and what their beliefs and attitudes are. You don't have to copy them, but the more you understand, that's your starting place for learning. And then engage, get a coach or a mentor, a performance psychologist, an expert who can help teach you. Mindsets will help you. And ultimately to a mindset, Heath referred to golf earlier. A mindset is a muscle. It's, we strengthen our mindsets, our attitudes and beliefs through repetition. So simple daily rituals to help you practice, the self-talk you have to yourself, what you say to others. If you want to shift your belief structure, talk about it others repetitively. And then follow it up with actions that demonstrate your belief. Think about it repetitively, write it down. Like you're trying to change your golf swing, you do it over and over and over again. But come back to what we said earlier about being kind to yourself is that if you're shifting a mindset or belief structure, the ones that have been dominant most of your life will continue to be dominant for a while. I once worked with a professional golf coach who said when he asked his players to change their grip a millimeter, he said, don't look at your score for 8 months. It's going to take a while to overcome that old habit, that the change you've made for it to bear fruit. It's going to take a while. So be kind to yourself, be realistic. You might be a beginner in this new attitude or belief. Just keep practicing it, keep getting around people, keep learning it, keep tapping into experts, and be ritual about it. And don't expect, you might get some bonuses and get some really great changes straight away, but be okay with putting in a few hundred and then a few thousand hours of practice.
Well, I think what you've just said here, and Bob, I'll ask for your thoughts on that too, but I think it's being unafraid of failure. We got to realize that it's a fantastic adventure in learning, and that minor change is going to bring that newfound potential that you were just talking about, if we're willing to commit to that change and to that process that you're talking about with rituals, to achieve those outcomes, right? To go through the transition, which really is the process or a period of changing from one state or condition to another. That's the actual definition. So that was really well said, and it really resonated with me, just how that is a requirement. What do you think, Bob, on what Sean said?
Really a great discussion, gents. Thanks so much, Sean, for sharing all that. I love that. I love your comment about be kind to yourself. I remember I worked with many groups of people, but early in my career, I worked with groups of 14-year-olds to 19-year-olds, and I'd have them in a camp setting where they would share some of their deepest thoughts. And we used to ask questions because 14 to 19 years old, you're making some major decisions in your life with very little experience and probably not a lot of good coaching to on many life decisions. And one of the things that stuck with me was when we asked the question, are you good at decision making? Are you confident in your decision making? Have you made good decisions? The answer was almost no. Like a high percentage of the teens would say, I'm just really lousy at it. I made lousy decisions. I wish I understood decision making, right? And what came out of that was their feelings that from decisions they had made very young in life that still were with them today. They were not being kind to themselves. They were not, they felt guilt, they felt remorse, they felt sadness, they felt all the negative emotions that go with making bad decisions, I guess. And they didn't see the opportunity. They didn't see the win. They didn't learn the lessons, or at least they didn't articulate the lessons, or couldn't at that time articulate the lessons. So when you say be kind to yourself, I look at my own life, right? And the massive amount of failure that I've had. But somewhere along the line, I learned that failure was good, that there was meaning. Going back to your thing, there was meaning. And there was an intentional movement from kind of going down from quadrant 1 to quadrant 2 into meaning, as you accepted the reality of that bad decision or that stress or change that you're going through in your life, that you could make an intentional decision to find meaning in it, right? And then make an intentional, take intentional action, make commitments from that. So I'd like to hear both your gentlemen's thoughts on that particular phenomenon. It's like, how do you move from the feelings of sadness and despair and failure, all this negative things, to the positive things? Like what can we do to help people? What can people do to help themselves?
Yeah, look, Bob, I think earlier on I mentioned when we're talking about just what's the process of change, the transition, and went through the 4 quadrants. That's really sort of that emotional journey of change. But I mentioned what I spoke to originally was, identify what you're doing right now, figure out where you want to be, set some goals, create an action plan, tap into purpose. But one of the things I mentioned there was also understanding roadblocks. And so, you might make a plan to make a change and feel like you're failing at it. One of the things people don't do is they don't recognize the roadblocks. roadblocks, the human roadblocks. And how do I help people move from insight into, a bit of insight or just the impetus to change? Like they go, I want to actually creating the change is we have to very quickly get into that discussion of what is going to stop you. So some of the stuff we've already talked about, your brain is going to, let's acknowledge your brain is going to stop you. That's part of the, being human and being kind to yourself as a human is part of just acknowledging that roadblock and breathing in, breathing out and saying, it's okay. Part of my brain doesn't want to do this. I'll tap into purpose. If my purpose is strong enough, my thinking, my why I want to make this change is strong enough, it should get me in action. But one of the other roadblocks, just the standard roadblocks built into the human system is, as I mentioned, is that conservation of energy. Your system one brain, as Daniel Kahneman refers to it, which is your automatic survival emotion-based brain, has got some really simple strategies. The conservation of energy is one of those strategies, which is, you could imagine if we lived in a primitive world, a lot of the things we do in the modern world, our brain in a primitive world would just say, don't do that, because spending that energy could put you at risk for dying. So it's like, I live in primitive times. We've got to hunt the woolly mammoth. I need a lot of energy to hunt the woolly mammoth. I've got to, get the last kill before winter, or else we'll die in this winter. So I wouldn't go and run a marathon just for fun. I wouldn't do a triathlon. I wouldn't stay up, for 3 days studying for an exam before going to hunt the woolly mammoth. I just wouldn't expend that sort of energy doing those sorts of things, because my brain says you've got to conserve energy at all times, because when you need a hunt, you need to be at your peak, because if you don't, capture your prey, you will die. So conservation of energy is inbuilt into our brain. It's always there. It's been part of our primitive brain, but it's not going anywhere. So we have to overcome that as well. We have to, which is why we talk so much about purpose. We need something to overcome that. So a lot of the things I would already say that those are the building blocks. Those are some of the roadblocks that are just built in the brain. But then each individual, when I sit down with them to talk about change, I was just talking to someone yesterday, a new client around this, is identifying their starting points. What is their core roadblock? What are some of the key things right now? So for example, if I'm working with an athlete, even though I'm a psychologist, I'm going to still talk to them about their physical health. Like, I like to use the sort of the analogy of a marathon runner coming to me and said, Sean, this sports psych, I need some strategies. I need some mental strategies. I got to be more resilient. I'm just not training very well. I'm going out. I got like 10, 12, 15K runs I got to do. And I'm getting like 500 meters in and I'm giving up. I just don't feel like doing it. Come on, give me some strategies. I'm struggling. And I say, hang on. Well, let's find your starting point. So where's your health at? Like, how's the body? Like, I'm not a sport physiologist, but just how's the body? Oh, well, I've got a broken tibia, a fractured tibia. Don't worry about that though. Like, I got to push through that. Like, I just need some strategies. I need some mental strategies. And I'm going, seriously? Like, no, you need to sit on the couch and heal your bone before you can run. But it's sometimes that ridiculous when we don't look at our roadblocks, when we don't sort of look at our broader life and say, what are my current challenges? So, that one's the obvious, and that doesn't really happen, that someone's got a broken leg and they keep trying to run. Well, sometimes it does actually happen. It has happened in sport. But, sometimes if we look at our lives, we're trying to push ourselves at that level of ridiculousness. Like, someone might be sleeping 2 or 3 hours a night. And this is much more common. They're sleeping 3 hours a night. And they come to me, their HR director is referred this as an executive at a company. This is a real case study. And the person has come to me and say, I have to quit my job. I'm just not good enough anymore. And once again, I ask that question, what's going on in your life? Let's look at a few areas. What's going on socially? How are your relationships? How are you mentally, emotionally, physically? What's going on? Well, I'm struggling to sleep. Okay, well, what does that really mean? Well, literally, I'm getting a patchy 4 hours a night. So I may be sleeping 3 hours. And then I'm an overload of stress. I've just been I've been on a project team for the last 10 months, and we failed. The project failed, the bid failed. And I'm like, wow, like that, it's really normal. You're feeling absolutely burnt out. Now is not a time to make a decision about quitting your job. And it's not that you're not capable. No one would be capable of doing that job in your state. We've got to get sleep back in your system. How's your diet? Well, typically when people are feeling lousy, they eat poorly too. So diet was down the toilet, sleep was terrible. And then of course, the mental game of making meaning of his situation, he was looking at himself going, well, clearly I'm not good enough. Worked for the company for 15 years as a brilliant employee. So clearly he was good enough. But in that moment was making assessments based on how he felt, which was feeling terrible and burnt out, was ready to quit his job. This is like a few months ago. I'm like, you got all the support you need in this company. They want to, help you work with me. Don't quit your job. Let's just first get a few things right. Your key roadblocks right now are energy in a big way. Like you need to get out of burnout. We've got to manage your energy. We've got to get you sleeping. We've got to get you eating better. We got to just get you so you're functional, because you can't even assess your own capability. You can't even do your job right now. You're like the marathon runner with a broken leg. And so for me, that's really the key starting point. Is as much as we want to talk about goals and strategies and mindsets and emotions, I want to really still understand, as soon as we talk about those and decide, and your why and your purpose is really important up front, but then immediately going, okay, the why not? What's in your way? What might be the roadblock? Is it something personal? Is it health-wise? Is it physical? Is it something situational? You might have just moved country. You've just transitioned to a new country. You don't have any friends. You're concerned about, you've got to perform in your job to keep your visa. Like those are situational challenges that would mean, that create extra stress. So I'm looking at all aspects of someone's life and saying, what potentially is going to draw energy away from what you're trying to achieve right now, and start with some foundations and get some, core foundational principles in place. So when we understand those roadblocks, and those are just some of them, like, understanding people's roadblocks is really, it comes in at every stage. It comes in at the starting phase to say, let's make sure that we've resolved anything that's going to stop you before you get started. But then we're constantly asking that question the way through someone's journey, through their whole life, and saying, what can we anticipate might be a challenge? In businesses, they might call that risk management. But, so it's not, I could go on and on. There's a lot more elements, but if I'm looking at how do I get people into change to overcome that, you said, here are these kids that don't believe, they look at their attitudes and beliefs. They've had some experiences in life. They don't think they can make changes. We want to go right to that root cause and say, well, what are the causes of where those attitudes and beliefs come from? That might be the most persistent roadblock. Yeah.
Well, Sean, I'm blown away. I've been taking notes fervently here, writing and on this. And what I've really realized from all of this is that change takes a lot of energy, spiritually, mindfully, as well as physically. And getting that balance and coming from a position of strength as much as possible. We got to get to at least a basic equilibrium before we're really capable of making good and wise choices about change and transition. That whole mindset of transition that we've really talked about here today is unbelievably powerful. And for our viewers, I'm going to try to just put it down into Heath points and then sort of get you to kind of agree, change it, and wrap that up, because I think we're there. Because I know what I want to do is I want to have you back, and I want to talk about energy health, because I see this as critical. I know you've helped me specifically in my life around this, and that capacity issue for all of us is that we overdo it quite often, and we don't know if we're overdoing it until snap, something breaks. That's the normal human condition.